Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We've got a lot to discuss. Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada's visit to the White House, where Carney looked at Donald Trump saying, "Not now, not ever. Canada will never submit. It will never bend the knee. We will not be a 51st state." And then Prime Minister Carney just overall looking like, what in the hell is going on here, as Donald Trump rambled and ranted and raved. Breaking news before the show started as well. It appears that missiles coming from India are striking down as we speak right now on Pakistan, and whether there's going to be a war in that region over the recent terrorist incident in Kashmir is something that we are closely following. All of the air travel over Pakistan has been diverted. And this seems to be the beginning of what actually could be a very major hot war in that area after there was at least a truce, but a ceasefire between India and Pakistan for some time. So more instability there. And then a major order we'll talk about out of the Southern District of New York, Judge Hellerstein declaring Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to be a violation of the Alien Enemies Act and to be unconstitutional and improper. And then we can talk, Cohen, as well about whether it's Donald Trump posting the AI images of himself as the Pope, really giving the middle finger to the Catholic community in mourning about Pope Francis.
And of course, refusing to acknowledge the fact
and then he claimed it wasn't him.
Right.
He said it was just AI that did it. Donald Trump talking about reopening Alcatraz after he apparently watched Escape from Alcatraz at Mar-a-Lago, and then the whole regime and everybody's pushing that Alcatraz, just deeply unserious and unwell people who are causing real issues. But just take a look at this. Like, to me, of all of the distractions that are going on, fundamentally, the government's got to do the basics, right, Cohen? We take for granted sometimes that, like, there are people who work for the government who do things that we rely on and need to provide basic protection and safety and things like that. So you have Sean Duffy going on Fox moments ago, and he said this also yesterday as well on some of the shows, and basically saying that the air above DC is unsafe because the Department of Defense is taking VIPs in these helicopters above the airspace, and that Hegseth is not getting back.
Let me be let me be very clear about something. There's something seriously wrong when you have an administration that knows that what they're telling you is wrong, it's a lie, but simply parroting the comments that they know you want them to say. Go ahead, play the clip, Ben.
Let's play this clip of Sean Duffy.
And there was this issue about an Army helicopter in the D.C. flight area and who was flying on it and why it flew in a pattern that forced two commercial airlines to have to reroute and land in another place. Were you able to find out who was on that flight and why, given what happened with the 67 people whose lives were lost in a similar situation, why would that even be happening?
So there are way too many VIPs, is what they call them, at the Pentagon. I mean, I look around the White House. There's a lot of really important people here. They take a Suburban. Why is the Pentagon that much more sophisticated where they have to take helicopters in a really busy airspace? So I'm hoping that we're going to get the answers. But I'm going to congratulate.
So you still don't know who was on that flight because our Pentagon folks say that it was a training mission, not a VIP. What do you say?
So, but here's the thing. Training missions, oftentimes, if you ever go to a football game and you have a flyover with F-16s,
sure.
Guess what that's called? A training mission. Okay. So are we moving VIPs and calling it training missions? And how many training missions are you doing in the middle of the day? If you had to train at a time where we don't have a busy airspace at D.C. I thought that lesson was learned, back on the 29th of January.
And you don't have any answer from the Pentagon from last night to today
I don't.
on that?
He goes, I thought that lesson was learned with a disastrous plane crash
and not with these folks. Not with these folks either. You know how, Ben, you could prove, one thing that we try to do here on this network, on Midas Touch, on Political Beatdown, my Mea Culpa, and all of the other programs that we try to stay involved with. You know how that what we're telling you is true, because you could actually do the research yourself in all of about 11 seconds and understand the reality of a lie versus a truth. Look at what happened just now in Newark Airport. In Newark Airport, the place was shut down, thousands of grounded flights because nothing is working. Because all of a sudden, a whole bunch of the screens went completely black, completely dead. They didn't know where the planes were. They had no visuals on these aircrafts. And we're not talking about just one or two. We're talking about hundreds. They had no idea, which of course caused massive, massive anxiety, which gives them the right under union rules within which to take some time off for personal days in order to make themselves PTSD days, so to speak. This is no joke. You had hundreds of aircraft landing, taking off, and in the air that were completely blind because things are going wrong. They're going south over at the FAA. And what is this moron, this bachelor rose-giving fool talking about? The fact that there's training episodes going on here? I mean, can we be serious for a second and understand that when an airplane goes down, there's generally no survivors left? We have, as the American people, we have a right, Ben. We have a right to feel safe, that when we get onto an airplane bound for wherever you're going, that you're going to get there. But not right now, when you have stupid cuts that were made by Doge, that you have people who are being fired. You're talking about air traffic controllers being fired. You're talking about people who are there to ensure your safety are being fired, all for what? So Trump could continue this charade of fraud, waste, and abuse? I'm sorry. It's bullshit, and it has to stop.
No doubt about it. And then Sean Duffy, by the way, not The Bachelor. You got your reality shows confused there.
Sorry.
Real World.
Sorry.
And Real World Road Rules Challenge is how he got famous.
Sorry.
And so that's how he got famous in the 90s. And now he's the transportation secretary. Well, here's what he's been posting as well. While all of this was going down, while the air traffic control workers are having PTSD and trauma because they were worried that all of the planes were going to crash into each other, Sean Duffy posts, "Nice to come home on a Friday night to home cook steak tacos after a long week working at the DOT, hashtag Latino wife," and he's eating tacos. What the hell is going on here? I mean, they fundamentally don't understand what their job is and what their role is, right? Because they are characters in a reality show that Donald Trump picked based on either their looks or their presence, and not based on their qualifications or their appeared presence, not based on their qualifications, reputations or anything like that. And then these morons, because it's always projection and confession, the reason that they're out there attacking DEI and saying meritocracy this is because these guys know that they don't have the merit. So in order to justify it to themselves, they go on this vengeance to go after people who don't look like them and say they don't have the merit. It's classic projection 101. So you go, Cohen, from the Department of Transportation Secretary right there to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is on Capitol Hill today testifying. He was asked a very basic question. Who pays for the tariffs? Treasury Secretary Bessent. Who pays for the tariffs? Watch, this is your point, Cohen. They know what they're saying is lies. So here, Treasury Secretary Bessent, he just gives up on using words and sentences and just starts going,
Well, he pulled the Porky Pig. That's all, folks.
And then the member of Congress goes, okay, reclaiming my time if you're just going to go, here, watch this.
Who pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry, well,
Who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the
is
question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
It's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs, right? Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time. You clearly aren't going to answer. I'm not going to waste my time having you go, Mr. Secretary, reclaiming.
And then Treasury Secretary Bessent was asked, are you having trade negotiations with China? Have you had one discussion with China where now there's a total trade embargo between China and the United States when we normally do $2 trillion worth of trade with them annually? So has there been because Donald Trump claims that there's good conversations going on. Many people in the regime start the weeks off by saying that we're likely to have a deal with China soon. That manipulates the markets. The markets go up on that. We've all heard that, right, Cohen? You've heard them say that before. Midas Mighty, political beatdown brigaders. You've heard the Trump regime say, okay, we've had productive conversations with China. The markets go up. Well, let's see what Scott Bessent says when he's under oath. Let's play the clip.
I've said before, there are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet.
China,
whoa. Did I just hear that correctly? Did I just hear that we haven't engaged in the largest trading partner to the United States so far? Seriously? And these are the people who want you to trust them. These are the people that we have entrusted to run this country. They start something they had no need to start, and they haven't even engaged in a single conversation. Fantastic.
Because Donald Trump thinks that if there is a trade deficit, that we get richer by not trading with that country, because he views it as that means we're subsidizing them. He believes, wrongly, that a trade deficit means that there is a tariff on us by whatever the foreign country is, not that we're getting goods here cheaper that then are resold or become a part of other parts and an assembly line of things that get built here. And when you don't have people who fundamentally even either understand or refuse to even explain the most basic concepts of economics, and then you have all of this corporate news and all of the Republicans in the House and Senate who know better, who are basically pretending that we're not seeing what we're seeing.
Right.
It's why we all feel so gaslit about we're seeing it. So when Donald Trump was with Prime Minister Carney today, let me show you this clip. And then he was with Prime Minister Carney, and Donald Trump is asked about China and the fact that there have not been negotiations. Here's what Donald Trump says. Let's play it.
Yourself, they don't make the money off other countries like this. And we had a trade imbalance. We had a deficit, or they had a surplus, another way of saying it, of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, more than $1 trillion. And because of 145%, that's the only reason, but because of they have now 145% tariff, there's no trading. You can't trade with 145%. We are therefore making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion. Our deficit.
We weren't losing $1.1 trillion.
That's the whole point. Okay. And I think it's important that we take a minute to kind of explain our point. People understand it, but they don't understand it from the standpoint of an economic principle, which you were talking about. And that principle is called the circular flow of economic activity. Let me be very clear. You can actually do this circular flow on a single piece of paper with a fucking crayon to explain it to a 10-year-old. And here's how it works. We all know that the manufacturer is not the only one who touches a good to the point that it ultimately becomes yours. And see, that's another aspect that Trump is missing. The fact that you're buying something. So you get something tangible for that $1.2 trillion that he's talking about. But here's the thing. So the manufacturer's in China. How does it get from China to the United States? The company that packs it, puts it into cargo, sends the cargo to the United States. When it hits the port, there's a tax. Then there are people who take it off. Those are called employees. Those employees then put it onto a pallet. That's another hand that touches it. It ends up going on to a truck, which is owned by the wholesaler. The wholesaler then sells it to the distributor. The distributor then sells it to the big box or to the customer or to the client, who then goes ahead, puts it into their warehouse. The Walmarts, the Kmarts, the Amazons, the Myers, whoever it might be. And then there are people working there that stock it and computerize it. And then there are the people that walk around the place to sell it to you. And then the people that check you out, and so on and so forth. There's like 20 hands of people that ultimately pay an IRS tax. They pay tax for the income that they derive for working in these various different companies that end up helping to move the product from China into your home. Trump, for whatever the reason, doesn't seem to understand this very simple, this very basic concept of economics. And that, my friends, is dangerous. And what makes it even more dangerous are the enablers that are around him that refuse to explain to him. I mean, somebody just walk over and say, hey, stupid, listen to me. All right. Enough. I get it. I get it. Back in the 1930s and 40s, when we were manufacturing everything ourselves, from the interior of the car to, right, you'd have an American company making wood handles and so on. It's very simple. All right. It's simple. We manufacture the steering wheels. Great. Now they're fucking made in Japan or China or someplace else. It's not made here anymore because Americans don't do those jobs anymore. And Americans like to buy goods cheaply. Right? You listening, Arturo? Wake up, you schmuck. It's simple here. This is not a complicated concept. This is a simple concept. And for whatever the reason is, he wants to fight this. And by fighting it, it's morons like Arturo. We had a couple of MAGA morons that are trolling us. It's very simple. You're the ones that are going to pay. You see, for whatever the stupid reason is, you legitimately think that Trump cares about you, that he cares about people because he's your guy, right? He's the blue-collar billionaire. This guy wouldn't piss on you if it required him walking across the street because you were on fire. Don't you understand? He doesn't care about anyone or anything. This is a very simple issue that he never should have gotten the United States of America into, because all it's doing is it's making China stronger. Because now they're working with other countries to fill the need for those goods. And you know what? The other countries that were going to do things and work with America, they're just now going to go to China. They're going to go to work with our adversary. Why? Because of this tariff concept. So it's time that people wake up and understand that nothing that is being done right now makes any sense at all.
And again, data point that we're giving you objective data, but to the trolls out there in the chat, maybe you go, look, you guys obviously don't like Trump, so you're going to say negative things about him. Look, I think that we're coming to you with objective data, but just, okay, well, why don't I show you a guy worth $8 billion? His name is Paul Tudor Jones. He runs a huge hedge fund. Okay, not like a lefty. Okay, this is just a right wing, I think, business guy. or I'm not even sure what his politics are to be, but just a business guy who's made a lot of money. He's asked the same question that Donald Trump was asked about tariffs, the same question that Scott Bessent was asked. Let me just show you how you actually answer the question, putting politics aside, if you're just being honest about what a tariff is and the harm it causes to the economy. Let's play it.
That you got those tariffs, the equivalent of a 2%. It'd be the largest. They're a tax. It's like the largest tax increase since the 60s. So you can kind of take 2 to 3% off growth. And then you got the Fed, who's, unless they got really dovish and really, really cut, you're probably going to new lows. And
that's going to be the impact of it.
He's not the only one.
Well, I could show you Ken Griffin from Citadel, Mark Rowan from Apollo, and we could show you people who, supported Trump during the campaign.
Millions, by the way, millions to go to the inauguration, to the presidential inauguration fund. They're called the PIC. All right. For God's sakes, they've given him millions of dollars. And yet here they're saying, do you know, honestly, Ben and I, no bullshit. And I'm going to even speak for Ben, though I'm hoping that he agrees. If this was a great idea, we would be the first ones saying, you know what? Good for them. Good for them. If it does good for the country, if it does good for all Americans, Republicans, that's even these morons, these MAGA morons, independents or Democrats, I'm good with that because that's what I expect from my president. It's what I expect from our elected leaders, that you do things that don't benefit you, but benefit the American people. That's why you're there. Nobody elected you to be the grifter in chief. They elected you to be the commander in chief, to be the president, but the president for all people.
Got a big audience today, 14,000 people watching us live as we speak right now. I want to remind all of our viewers that when the show ends, Michael Cohen and I will be on Patreon for a half hour today answering your questions at patreon.com/political beatdown. We'll go rapid fire. Ask us questions. We'll answer all of your questions. Today's the day, patreon.com/political beatdown. You sign up, you'll see us in a Zoom chat. There's a secret Zoom link there on patreon.com/political beatdown. So when this show ends and after show begins, interactive, you get to ask us questions. I look forward to that. Also, go to store.MeidasTouch.com. We've got great gear there, including our Maple Midas gear, 100% made in Canada, and especially with Prime Minister Carney being here today, we've got some great gear there as well. You could also get it in the United States, and there's a bunch of other gear that's that we sell as well that's made in the U.S. But for the Canadian merch, we make sure we make it in Canada and keep production, manufacturing, and distribution in Canada. Look forward to seeing everyone at patreon.com/political beatdown. Don't go anywhere, though. We still have a lot more show to go on this podcast and on our YouTube channel. We will be right back after this quick break.
Elbows up. All right. Let me tell you something. When you spend years in stiff suits, tight collars, and clothes that feel more like armor than fabric, finding something that actually fits and feels good, that's a game changer. True Classic, it's not just another t-shirt brand. They figured out how to make clothes that actually work for real life. These tees, like the one that I'm wearing right now, they fit exactly how you want them to. They're snug in the right places, relaxed where you need a little room. There's no weird bunching, there's no pulling, no rolling up at the waist, just clean, effortless, dependable style. But they didn't stop with t-shirts, no. True Classic's full lineup has you covered. Hoodies, jeans, activewear, the works. And the best part, it's all affordable. You're not shelling out designer prices and you're not stuck with cheap, disposable junk either. And look, I respect that these guys do things with purpose. From the quality of the fabric to how they treat their customers to how they give back, it's clear that True Classics not just building a brand, they're building trust. So here's the move. Head right now to trueclassic.com/beat. Use code BEAT and upgrade your wardrobe. You can even grab their stuff at Target or at Costco if you're running errands. But trust me, once you try it, you're going to want more. Again, head to trueclassic.com/beat. You know, some nights I just want to relax without wrecking myself for the next day. No hangover, no fog, no what the hell happened to my workout routine. I mean, that's why I've been turning to Sol's out of office gummies. It is a total lifesaver. Now, here's the deal. I stick to the CBD ones only. I mean, they help me unwind, they help me to clear my head, and they keep me grounded without the high. For someone like me who's juggling 1,000 things and still trying to dodge insanity, CBD hits the sweet spot. Calm, focused, present, and not waking up feeling like I did shots with Rudy the night before. Now, Sol is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Everything they make is from organically farmed, USA grown hemp, vegan, gluten-free, and low in sugar. So basically, I can feel good about what I'm putting into my body, which is more than I can say for half the things I did while I was working for Trump. Now, my friends, that's a different story. I hand out CBD plus THC gummies like party favors, and they love them. It's a great buzz, good vibes, no hangover. Everyone's happy, and no one's texting their ex at 2 a.m. And if you like their out-of-office gummies, you got to try their new out-of-office beverage. It's alcohol-free, refreshing, and perfect for sipping without sabotaging tomorrow. So bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Sol today. And right now, Sol is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. Go to GetSol.com. That's GetSol.com and use code BEAT, B-E-A-T. That's GetSol.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. And trust me, whether you're CBD, THC, or, I don't know, little of both, Sol's got your back. Go there now.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. Before we took that break, we very intentionally showed the clips of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We showed you how Donald Trump did not even know what a tariff or a trade deficit actually meant. And somehow Donald Trump thought that if there's a trade deficit, that actually means that, like, they're stealing $1.1 trillion and not that these cheaper products are coming into our economy that, to your point, Cohen, are then put into other things as part of an assembly line, and then with the goal of selling it for more, and that the United States then has its skill set, a lot of intellectual capital, where China wants their economy to look more like the United States, and Trump wants the United States economy to look like what China is trying to evolve out of. And when we go through each of these cabinet positions and Trump, what we're trying to do here is also take away the politics from it and not view this as, oh, here's the Democratic position or here's the Republican position, but to view it as what's the right position, what's the logical position, and are these people equipped with the knowledge and skill and understanding, or even the desire to understand things when they're responsible for these things. So let's move on next to Attorney General Pam Bondi. And Attorney General Pam Bondi does not even know what type of drugs Molly is, and she is trying to describe it, and she doesn't know what she's even talking about in a press conference that deals with how fentanyl is laced on certain types of drugs. Here, let's play this clip.
People need to know, parents need to know, kids need to know. This fentanyl, this bus, these 3 million pills for oxycodone, they put this in Xanax, they put this in Adderall, they put this in Molly, the date drug or the party drug, something called Molly. They put it in cocaine and they put it in marijuana. And it is to get you so highly addicted that you can't get off it.
And
It's
again,
unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Why can't she just Google? Why can't she just Google? I mean, even before, just
I got a better
Google.
question for you. Before, because she didn't write this. How about somebody just explain to her, by the way, Madam Attorney General, do you even know what Mali is? Do you understand the concept of MDA? All right. And so on. Do you understand what it does? So let me just walk you through really quickly so that you don't look foolish when you're up there for an issue that is extremely, extremely important. There's nobody that I think is okay with the influx of fentanyl coming into America that is destroying our youth, that's destroying America. I am all for making sure that they get rid of it and it never comes into our borders. Great. But understand what you're even fighting. Imagine not knowing what it is that you're fighting, but you're fighting it anyway, right? Just unprepared.
And then she was at that cabinet meeting where she told Donald Trump that he saved 255 million people's lives in America, and that in the first 100 days, 255 million Americans are still alive because of the work that he did. And it's just stupid. Here she is talking about Alcatraz. This is from the same press conference today. And like, she thinks she's being funny here. And she's like, who knows? Maybe we'll move these migrants to Alcatraz. Here,
Yeah.
Let's play that clip.
This guy is the leader. He's the number one guy. And I want them to stay in our prisons as long as possible. I've no desire to send them back to Mexico because they were coming across our border illegally. No longer will they be able to do that. But the amount of drugs, the amount of money, the amount of weapons, most of these individuals, if convicted, will remain in American prisons. Perhaps Alcatraz.
Perhaps Alcatraz.
Yay.
But here's the thing too there, Cohen, that they're so dumb. It also undercuts their position.
Ben, could we just stop for one quick second here? They're actually not dumb. Okay? Pam Bondi is not dumb. Marco Rubio isn't dumb. They're not. What they are right now is required to speak on Trump points. They get their talking point memos every single day, and they have to fit what they want to say into it. I mean, we just have to be fair. If they were dumb, if there was really something that was mental, some people are stupid and some people aren't. Pam Bondi is not dumb, nor is she stupid. She is just fighting to keep her job. And the way you do that, and this to me is worse than being dumb. It's being complicit. That's the point I'm trying to make. They're not dumb. They're complicit. And complicit to stupidity is really idiotic.
I'm going to go try to find. I'll send it to Jeremy maybe after the break, though. She definitely has a skill set because you don't get to, the organizational positions and navigate through bureaucracies. To become an attorney general of Florida and then to become an attorney general of the United States. But still, the fact that she spends all of her time on Fox and she doesn't even know some of the most basic stuff right there, it's very odd. Also, doesn't that just totally undercut their position about why they're sending Abrego Garcia to El Salvador?
It sure does.
Right, where they're saying we need to send the worst of the worst, even though Abrego Garcia had no criminal history, to El Salvador. So I just want to understand this. You're saying that the people who are the actual worst, they get to stay in America and they get due process. But the people who have no criminal history, who the prior Trump administration gave a work permit to, which requires background checks, a guy, Abrego Garcia, who worked at a union, had an American wife, 3 American kids, who's been here since 16, who checks in with ICE. I doubt if you're a real hardened gangster, you show up and you check with ICE and you let them know about the work you're doing with your carpentry union. It'd be a pretty significant mastermind to play 8-dimensional chess like that. but they're sending the people with no criminal history to concentration camps to rot and die and not return them. But the people who they're saying that they definitively know are lacing drugs with fentanyl, they get due process and stay in
they
the
also
United.
talk about creating Alcatraz into a supermax facility. We have quite a few supermaxes in this country. All right. We have quite a few of them. And let me be very clear. When you listen to the ignorance coming out of the Oval Office on this topic, when they turn around and tell you, including bullshit Barbie, when they tell you that these people will never hurt you again. They will never be roaming the streets. When you are in Supermax, you are in for life. You're not hurting anybody out on the streets when you are in a facility that's thousands of miles away from the next nearest home, thousands of miles away, where you have 50-foot walls surrounding the facility with 5 rows of barbed wire and lookout towers and so on, where you are handcuffed and shackled anytime that there's movement. This is not a joke. They're talking it as if you have individuals that are in the Supermax facilities that are walking your street. And it is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I don't even know how to describe the level of ignorance and the deceptive nature of their words.
Yeah.
What are they trying to prove, Ben? What do you think is their goal here? To just lie?
Well, the goal is, and I'll acknowledge what you're saying is correct. They have to parrot what Trump is saying. So what Trump is saying is complete and utter insanity. So when Trump wakes up and goes, Alcatraz, we're doing Alcatraz, their talking point, is Alcatraz now. When Donald Trump goes and posts about tariffing the movie industry, if it produces films overseas, they got to be like, we're into that. When Trump says, I want you to call the bill that's working its way through reconciliation in Congress, the big, beautiful bill, they have to go and say, no, this is the big, beautiful bill. And so what they have to do is they have to repeat what he says because they have no agency themselves. And because all of his things are nonsensical, but the media gives him a pass for it. And he just kind of blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, okay, that's like expected from him, which it shouldn't be. When you see other human beings do it, it's like if you were to read Donald Trump's statements that he makes and have a kid read it or have just somebody else read it and you read the words, you're like, what? So they're trying to parrot it and they're not him. And so it comes off like what? It doesn't even make any sense. But here's what props it up. So we're taking this episode very organized, very methodically, going through the cabinet positions and just showing you from a nonpartisan way that these people are not using basic logic and they're not informed by basic principles that would help us reach some understanding about what they're even talking about. They're just saying words. But then this is propped up by right-wing media, by state regime media. Fox is the biggest one, but there are others. And corporate news that both sides it is not that much better. So then you get Jeanine Pirro, who at some point in time, I guess, was a judge. And so she just starts to yell and she tells the people on the 5, let me explain it to you. I'm angry at what these libs are doing. And then she injects the rage into the viewers who are like, oh my gosh.
Then you finally did a great impression.
Well, here she is right here. Let me be clear about this. Let me be clear about this. Here she is talking about the Supreme Court never, like, why do you even have to talk like that? Like, why can't you, if you're going to make that point, why can't you just say, let me be clear about this? Watch this clip.
But then on this whole thing of Abrego Garcia, I went back and I read the Supreme Court decision again. They are interpreting it when she said, isn't he entitled to due process? Abrego Garcia was entitled, according to the Supreme Court, to be facilitated in his return only because there was a withholding order and he shouldn't have been deported because of the withholding order. Okay, because he's MS-13 and they'll kill him with the other gang. So let's be clear about this. The Supreme Court never said in a Abrego Garcia case that due process is required for illegal.
Okay, it did. It says,
by the way, it most certainly did. I mean,
order
what she's doing is she's reading only part of the order, which I think is completely disingenuous. And again, she is not dumb. I've actually I've appeared before Judge Janine, you know, when she was here in the courts in New York. I think it was Staten Island, if I'm not mistaken, because it was many, many, many years ago. Imagine if it was her order, if it was her non-deport order that was being violated. You could only imagine that squeaky voice screaming so loud from the courthouse that you could hear it, you know, from borough to borough. But she doesn't care because she too has to play ball in Trump's world. Otherwise, she probably loses her job there on Fox, right? This is all just disingenuous. It's all about me, as opposed to speaking truth to power.
And I'll just read what the Supreme Court decision says. This order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Improperly sent to El Salvador, facilitate his release, handle it as it would have been had it not happened. It couldn't be clearer. I want to show you more about that. Then I want to talk about Judge Hellerstein. Powerful ruling. Echoes Judge Rodriguez's decision in the Southern District of Texas, saying the Alien Enemies Act was improperly invoked by Donald Trump because we are not in a war with Venezuela. And that the point that Pam Bondi actually made is evidence, in my view, of summary judgment against her. There is a place if you want to deal with criminals. It's called our justice system. And our justice system, you can deal with them. You could prosecute them here. You give due process. You can deport. There are options available, but you have to go through a process. And if you don't like process, then just admit you don't like America. You don't like our system. And if you don't like our system, then go to another place and find a system that you like. I hear North Korea and Russia have a different system.
I mean, Ben,
but if you get on the bad side of their system,
right? Can we not just all acknowledge here again? Let's acknowledge that none of us want Trendaragua as our next neighbors. Can we also acknowledge, please, that none of us want MS-13 as our next door neighbors and, you know, and in our communities? I think it's a fair thing to say. But I think Ben read it beautifully and he highlighted it perfectly. This guy is not Trendaragua, nor is he MS-13, simply because Trump says that you are. I want to be clear about something too, knowing Trump as well as I do, better than everybody. If in fact he was MS-13, if he was, and there was valid proof, the same way Trump goes ahead and posts the fake AI photo of himself as the Pope during a mourning period for Pope Francis, during an ongoing conclave, he would be posting photos, he would be posting documents, he would be posting whatever he can to prove to you that he is right and the rest of us are all wrong, that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is MS-13. Has anybody seen a single fucking document so far? Has anyone seen any proof other than their words telling you that he is MS-13? Not only is he MS-13, he's not just MS-13. He is the leader of MS-13 in New York, despite the fact that he has never been to New York. This is the point I'm trying to make. One lies and the rest of them swear.
And apparently, according to Pam Bondi, if you're the worst of the worst, you should be in an American prison. You heard her say that before, because it's safer to Americans to lock these people up in American prison. So there's no consistency here with what they're saying. We're going to take our last quick break of the show. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about Prime Minister Carney going elbows up. We should also talk about elbows up Anthony Albanese, Australia's prime minister, the Labour Party, which is their kind of left-leaning party, as close as you could say to like the Democrats in Australia. Their Liberal Party in Australia is actually the conservative right-wing party. Peter Dutton was their Timu Trump, who got destroyed over the weekend in that elections. The Trump effect internationally, destroying MAGA-aligned candidates abroad. And I think countries abroad seeing what Trump and Musk are doing here and saying, not in our country. Let's take our last quick break of the show.
I found a valuable tool that gives me insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. And it's managed to improve other aspects of my life as well. And it's called Lumen. So what's Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. Look, let me tell you how Lumen works. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day that's based on your measurements. And you can also breathe into it before or after workouts and meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Look, I'm not a kid anymore. My metabolism, it's not as fast as it used to be. Staying healthy and fit, it's much harder. So anything that I can do to gain an advantage, I'm interested. And here's why. So your metabolism, it's your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything that your body does, optimal metabolic health, it translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and much more. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. To the women out there, it also helps you track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause, and it'll help you adjust your recommendation to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you can keep your energy and stave off cravings. So my friends, right now, take the next step to improving your health and go to lumen.me/beat to get 20% off your Lumen. So that's LUMEN.me/beat for 20% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah, thank you, Lumen. Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors. A reminder, when this show ends, right away, we're going to be on patreon.com/political beatdown. We've got a 30-minute lightning round questions for Michael Cohen and myself. You go to patreon.com/political beatdown, sign up. There's a secret Zoom link there for our patrons. Let's talk about Prime Minister Carney. We can talk about that was Prime Minister Carney's face throughout this. Like, what in the world am I observing right there? What in the world is going on? Now,
he's a pretty classy guy, isn't he?
He really is. And I think he handled it well. Donald Trump said a bunch of crazy things. And dangerous things and hateful things about Canada. But Prime Minister Carney got the main point across, that he was in control, that he was open to cooperating. You know, I think he showed how crazy Donald Trump looks and is, and made it clear, I think in the big moment, that never, ever will Canada become the 51st state. So why don't I show you two clips about that? First, let me show you what went down after. This is Prime Minister Carney holding a separate press conference alone. Here, you'll see him basically, he's asked, what was going through your head when you were watching Donald Trump? Let's play that clip first.
First question, première question. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the President talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through. With respect to the first point, the President has made known his wish about that issue for some time. I've been careful always to distinguish between wish and reality. I was clear there in the Oval Office, as I've been clear throughout on behalf of Canadians, that this is never going to happen. Canada is not for sale. It never will be for sale. Some things, as I said in the room, some things are never for sale. And he agreed with that. I distinguish between the two. And then with respect to the importance of reestablishing a constructive relationship for negotiations of a partnership, of an economic and security partnership, which is what we were here for. I look forward, not back, and I think we established a good basis today.
Still, he said, we established a good basis today.
I think he established a basis. I'm not so sure the good is right. I mean, you got look, you go to the doctor's office, they turn around, you have some sort of an issue called a blood issue. So they call that your base, right? That's the base. You never want to go below that base. You only want to go up, which of course medication and lots of medication will ultimately do for you, right? Or treatment. This is the problem, Ben. This guy right now is very, very smart. I will tell you one thing. I truly hope that Carney puts Trump in his place. And it's bad for America. I only want it because I believe that would be the impetus for the morons, the MAGA morons. And they know who they are. When they look in the mirror, it's so easy to tell the MAGA moron. One, you got to take the ugly red hat off. Two, you got that lobotomy scar on your forehead. And three, it's the guy with the three, or the woman with the 3 teeth and the 4 brain cells. You know exactly who you are. You're listening to a guy who is absolutely tanking this country, and you will be, along with everyone else, feeling the pain. You will feel the pain when the shelves are all empty. You will feel the pain when your kid needs a new pair of sneakers and you can't afford it because made in America means that sneaker is $500. It's time that people start to wake up and start to think. Use your fucking brains. Understand, there is a reason why the United States' GDP is 2.5 times the size of any other country, with number 2 being China. All right. It's because you don't have to manufacture the goods in order to be an economically strong country. Trump's understanding is wrong. And if Carney really wants to stick it to Trump, see, I know what I would do. I would tell him, you got 72 hours there, big fella. All right. To knock this shit off, get rid of the tariffs, or we cut off all electrical power to the northeast of America. By the way, that means me. It means I have to figure out how to attach my computer to a fucking battery pack, simply because there'll be no electricity from Maine all the way past New York. All of our electricity is coming from Canada. So don't tell me for a second that we don't need Canada. All of the soft lumber that's used for new construction, it comes from Canada because it is a certain type of wood. Trump thinks you're going to go into Central Park and start cutting down trees. I mean, the nonsense. We have lots of trees, lots of trees. We have the biggest, most beautiful trees you've ever seen. Trees, 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 trees. Right? Look at the tree. Right? That's not how it works. There are certain rocks, for example, that you need, right? You just can't go use any rock. You need, for example, like a limestone. I mean, it is so fundamentally foolish. And I believe that Carney understands just how much the United States counts on and relies upon Canada in this trade.
2-finger salute, Cohen.
Two-finger salute has to go to our dear friend over there, the moron bachelor or whatever the fucking show that he was on, Sean Duffy. All right, you get the two elbows up, the two fucking fingers salute. You're going to get both today because let me be very clear. Planes dropping out of the sky, smacking into each other. I think there's something like 80 incidents so far in the first 107 days of this administration. So this nonsense about cutting, waste, fraud, and abuse, you don't cut people that are going to put our lives in jeopardy so that you could end up, cosplaying as Secretary of Transportation. At this point in time, at 107 days, Pete Buttigieg, there were 14 incidents, not 80.
There you have it. Let's go to this. Let's go to this Patreon, huh? Let's see. I can't wait to meet our patrons over there right now. We'll answer questions. We've got a good half hour to do that. Patreon.com/political beatdown. patreon.com/political beatdown. Subscribe to the Mea Culpa podcast wherever it's available on audio podcast. Just use your audio podcast device, search Mea Culpa. Store.MidasTouch.com. Get your Midas Touch gear, including your Maple Midas gear. We've got great stuff there. Subscribe to the Michael Cohen YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Just search on YouTube at The Michael Cohen Show. Hit subscribe. I know you will definitely appreciate the content that Michael Cohen has there. Cohen's got a great Substack. We've got a Substack as well at the Midas Touch Network.
Please join both. The one thing that Ben and I are trying to also do, everybody asks me, I must get 1,000 DMs, text messages, etc., almost a day. And I'm not being over exaggerating on this. I can't tell you the number. It is massive. Well, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? Let me tell you what you do. You join Midas Touch Network Substack. You join their YouTube channel. You join mine, and so on. Why? Because we're building a community that is going to be so big. We're going to build this community even bigger than what anybody ever expected. And that way, come 2026, the blue tsunami is going to be so overwhelming that we don't have to worry about the fraud that this administration is going to try to perpetuate upon us. That's what you could do. But even more than that, tell your friends to join. Let them learn. Let them not be misinformed or receive disinformation or malinformation. The more that we could bring them into the fold, the more that they will then bring their friends into the fold, and so on and so on. And we will reclaim back our country.
There you have it. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. We'll see you now on patreon.com/political beatdown. Check it out.
Boom.